Embark on your journey, the path you must take. Though hate may surround you, it's not your fate to forsake. Co-creating your destiny in the dance of time. The guiding light within you ignites the sublime. It is the light, the guiding light from the heart and soul. Don't lose control. Let it be the light, shining bright, unlocking potential beyond belief, taking flight. In the depths of your being, the truth resides. Embrace your power, let your spirit rise. With every step forward, you transcend the expanded conscious community we commend. Through trials and triumphs, your soul evolves in the symphony of life, where every note resolves. Listen to the whispers of your inner voice. In unity and love, let your heart rejoice. It is the light, the guiding light from the heart and soul. Don't lose control. Let it be the light, shining bright, unlocking potential beyond belief, taking flight. It is the light, the guiding light from the heart and soul. Don't lose control. Let it be the light, shining bright, unlocking potential beyond belief, taking flight. As we gather together in this sacred space, embracing transformation with grace. Life coach Malachi leads the way in unlocking potential day by day. One faith, embracing transformation with grace. Life coach Malachi leads the way, unlocking potential day by day. Take I'm pushing buttons and pushing buttons and pushing buttons. I was trying to mess with TikTok, and I need to leave TikTok alone for a minute. Hey, I'm glad to see y'all. We're looking good this evening. Are we looking good? Yes, y'all. To the beat, y'all.
What's up? What's up? We're gonna see who's in the room. Make sure you like and share. We're gonna see who's in the room. Miss Deidre. Hey,
Good
hey.
evening. Good evening, everybody. Let's see who we have so far. Mother White's in the building. Good to see you. LaSonia was here early. I think she got the notification and it just had it ready to go. So good to see you, LaSonia. Creasy, it's good to have you return and watch with us. I hope you're doing well. Hi, Lynn. Good to see you in the YouTube space. And Mother Gwen. Mother Gwen's in the building. Those of you that are on, don't forget to like and share. We know we have a late crew that hits us about 10 o'clock. They start coming in, but go ahead and like and share now.
Absolutely.
Oh, and Miss Marie. Good to see you, Miss Marie.
Y'all do. I promise you don't want to miss this because, like, I have an agenda set on what I want to discuss without the guests. And I think we're definitely looking at building out like a series. I like to elevate, inspire, motivate, and get you the content that you need, something that's going to help change your life, something that's going to help give you something besides just some talking points. Be like, yeah, we're talking and talking and talking. So I don't know if you've seen it, but it said deconstructing the culture or the cult nature of America. Look at D. D likes that. That's her topic right there. That's her topic. Let's go ahead. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna grab that real quick since I have it right here, D, and I'm gonna put that in as a banner so that people can see
what we're talking about.
What we are talking about. And because there's so much that's going on right now, there's so much going on. We lived in a world that there's always been something going on. But now we get to have front stage, front seats. We get to have passes to see the world. We don't know if it's true. We don't know if it's not true with AI. Some of us can't pinpoint whether what it is, if it's AI, if it's even if it's real in what someone is saying. And as you see, they're deconstructing what a culture is. What is cult and what is culture? What is nature of America? And here it is. Consciousness is no longer optional. Because if you choose to not pay attention, if you choose or you can't comprehend what's taking place, then millions of people will have to deal with the aftermath of what is to come of the current situations. And there's things you can be doing right now. There's things that you can be doing right now. There are things that you can be doing right now. And one of them is paying attention to the right content, right? A lot of our deconstructing and of Christianity and faith can sometimes leave us in that category of that silo, and everything else in life is steady moving. Make sure y'all like and share. Miss D is going to be working behind the scenes, and want to make sure everyone that is able to be a part of this. We're going to go do some exploring here. We're going to do some exploring. But before we do that exploring, pop my screen up. Before we do that exploring, before you had a name, get your notepads. Make sure you take some notes and put it in the chat. But before you had a name, you had a program. Before you had a language, you had a label. Before you had a belief, you had a culture, a cult nature, or a cult with nature. Culture that shaped your who you are, your instincts, your identity, even your God, kind of shapes our reality. But who wrote this? Who benefits from it? And who suffers when it goes into question? Y'all, it's time to deconstruct. I found out recently, did you know that slavery, technically, economically, wasn't a will of the people to free the slaves? Abraham Lincoln's major goal wasn't just we need to free these people because it's unfair. I believe that there may have been some essence of what he believed in his writings when it comes to slaves, but ultimately it was a financial decision to get the rest of the Union to be a part of the Enlightenment. The Enlightenment, which is the upper part versus the South. Enlightenment takes hold, they formulate. They had different kind of churches. South has its own churches, their own belief systems. And one of the biggest reasons why we eliminated slavery was it didn't economically make sense, because when you have to feed, clothe, take care of, doctor, even though you had a lot of slaves that were midwives and they can do a lot of different things, but it became pretty expensive and it didn't make sense. But I'm not here to just look at one side of the culture and the nature of who we are, but if we break down culture, it is the invisible code that tells us what's normal, what's not normal. It tells you your values, your customs. It tells you your language. It tells you your dress. It tells you your religion. It tells you your beliefs. It tells you who to love. It tells you who to hate. It tells you what to worship. It tells you what to hate. It tells you what to buy and tells you what to believe about you, yourself. But as we look at the word culture, the word cult so happens to be within it. And I would say that's no accident. A cult at its core is a system of controlled based and unquestioned beliefs and enforced behavior. It says, this is the truth. Don't ask questions. Sound familiar? Most of what we call culture is just a socially accepted cult with better branding. The only difference between a cult and a culture is public relations, baby. Public relations. So we're going to, we're going to hold on here real quick. We're going to go out on an adventure and we're going to understand a little bit about how you developed your culture.
more than just genes. A large part of who we are and the decisions that we make are influenced by the culture that we grew up in. So where does this influence start? Think all the way back to when you learned manners. You were probably scolded for engaging in behavior that was considered rude in your culture. Conversely, you were probably encouraged to engage in behaviors that are considered to be polite. Now, as you were conditioned to engage in more polite behaviors, you subconsciously picked up on patterns that influenced how you behave. These patterns are highly influenced by the values of the culture that you grew up in. But not all cultures hold the same values. Some cultures tend to encourage behaviors that are loud, boisterous, and competitive. Others encourage quiet, respectful, and more humble behaviors. Depending on the culture where you live, you probably pick up on these values, and they have definitely influenced your decisions and your personality. Researchers have been studying the connections between culture and personality for a long time, and in this video, I'm going to attempt to explain two spectrums that researchers have created to define cultures. The culture's place on these spectrums highly influences the personality traits and the behaviors of the people within that culture. So culture is not determined by borders. As you'll see throughout the rest of this video, people learn lessons from cultures that are created from people within a certain country, occupation, class, gender identity, or other differences. For example, just because the country you live in has an individualist culture does not mean you are bound by individualist ideas. So keep this in mind throughout the rest of the video. Let's get started by talking about individual versus collectivist culture. Individualism focuses on the individual, just as the name implies. People living in an individualist environment prioritize self-improvement of themselves and satisfying their own needs before the rest of those of their community. Why? Well, individualist cultures believe and teach that if everyone takes care of themselves, then the entire group should thrive and then become self-sufficient. Individualist cultures put a lot of stress on independence and self-reliance. Those that live in this type of culture tend to be very self-sufficient and driven workers. But
Hey. I hope y'all are with us. You can listen, please listen. But that said, individualized versus collective, right? America and what we are about in privatization, individualized, but that has its parameters, right? It has its parameters. But I want you to make sure you're paying attention to the philosophy, paying attention that the philosophy is going to is bringing forth an ideology, right, that bleeds into what we want to believe as facts for everyone, something that we should do. I'm going to take it back just a little bit because that's so important on what we are experiencing today in what we're
should thrive and then become self-sufficient. Individualist cultures put a lot of stress on independence and self-reliance. Those that live in this type of culture tend to be very self-sufficient and driven workers, but are weaker whenever it comes to collaboration and teamwork. They usually struggle handing off responsibility. Now, in general, these people usually distance themselves psychologically and emotionally from one another, since working with others is more of an option than a requirement for success. In the media, we often see individualist characteristics associated with men, people in urban settings, and the Western culture. So what about collectivist cultures? People living in a collectivist environment are taught to focus on the needs of the group before they focus on their own individual needs. They associate their identity to the role and function in a larger group. These groups can include families, teams at work, or the entire nation. Collectivist societies teach people that everyone will benefit when they start to look out for one another. Harmony and interdependence between group members is highly valued among people in this type of environment. Now, unlike their individualist counterparts, members of collectivist cultures tend to be extremely close to each other psychologically and emotionally. Now, this can create an us versus them mindset that separates or looks down upon people that are outside of their group. Collectivist characteristics are generally associated with women, people in rural settings, and Eastern culture. So let's look at another spectrum. Did you grow up in an approach or an avoidance culture? This idea was coined in 1935 to help psychologists identify what makes some conflicts easy to resolve and others difficult to resolve. Where you lie on this spectrum can highly influence how you make decisions. So, what is approach versus avoidance? Humans typically want to approach and move towards pleasurable things, and they typically want to avoid and move away from negative or painful things. It's very similar to Freud's pleasure-pain principle. The idea of approach versus avoidance was measured when an experiment was conducted on rats in 1948. The rats were exposed to different positive and negative stimuli. Researchers then measured the strength of their pull towards the stimuli. The most interesting results from this experiment revealed that the closer the rats were to the item that they were either approaching or avoiding, the stronger their pull was in either direction. Now, this can be applied to humans and how they make their decisions and categorize conflict. But what does it have to do with the culture where you grew up with? Because that's kind of the topic of this video, right? The culture helps to teach you at a young age what to approach and what to avoid. Culture doesn't teach you to avoid physical pain and approach food. Those things are instinctual to all humans. The things we learn to approach and avoid through culture appeal to a higher need. One example of this is something called uncertainty avoidance. The uncertainty avoidance of a culture is a measure of how that culture responds to novelty and uncertainty. How does a culture deal with ambiguity? Are changes welcome in the nation, or does the culture approach stable, traditional rules and customs? Now, in some research, I've found that countries who generally score high in neuroticism tend to be high in uncertainty avoidance. Those countries usually have a more formal system of rules that try to minimize cultural or situational ambiguity, and the citizens are uninterested in changing them. These cultures tend to be more conservative, more emotional, and usually xenophobic. Families in these cultures tend to have more traditional gender roles too. Schools have more structured learning, and children are taught to trust that their teachers have all of the answers. Children are also taught that the outside world may be a hostile place. Religions associated with the uncertainty avoidance include Catholicism, Islam, Judaism, and Shintoism. Conversely, countries low in neuroticism and low in uncertainty avoidance tend to have fewer laws and regulations, and their citizens are much more interested in politics. These cultures are often more open to change and more tolerant of diversity, and people within these cultures tend to suppress their emotions more. Families in these cultures usually have looser gender roles, and their schools have a more open-minded learning. As a generality, teachers are allowed to say that they don't know, and students are encouraged to question authority. Children are also taught that the outside world is benevolent and that they should not persecute others based on their beliefs. Religions associated with low uncertainty avoidance include Protestantism, Buddhism, Taoism, and Hinduism. So where do you fit in? Uncertainty avoidance is just one concept that is influenced by a culture's personality and how it influences the decisions and behaviors of the people within that culture. What were you taught to avoid? What were you taught to approach? And how does the culture where you grew up in influence what you consider to be comfortable and uncomfortable? I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, feel free to watch some of the—
So there are some things that I have a take on in this, and whenever he talks about minimizing ambiguity, high certainty, what's happening is, and he talked about Protestantism, he's separating, and a lot of us tend to separate Christianity as different religions within Christianity. Catholicism, Jehovah's Witness, Mormon, Quaker, and the list shall go on, in terms of when we look at different degrees of Christianity as religions. That's a lot, has a lot to do with our religious literacy. Most likely, if you're born in America under the cult of America, which we are fighting today, you will see Christianity and its cousins from Catholicism as different religions. But technically, all of these things are only 100. I'm sorry, all of these things are still yet from Christianity. What we are witnessing and what we mostly don't know is Protestants. We Pentecostal, charismatic, non-denominational, they are pretty much Protestants. And if you go deeper into Christian history, we will understand that that is almost like a baby. Pentecostalism is a baby, but when you look at the entire body, or you look up the entire history of Christianity, the remnants, or the stories and the life and the connection to this man believed to be named Yeshua, and they translated that to Jesus. That is deeply ingrained into the American culture. One of the things about culture that I want you to understand is music, art, dance. One of the big things that you would understand if you want to learn about the Project 2025 is that was designed, formulated off of ideology of a guy will probably venture out and see, Curtis Yarvin. It plays a big role, and that's part of a culture, and it's part of a word called heritage. One of the things that can get us in trouble, and when I say trouble, I mean get us confused and following something based on traditions, based on heritages, based on what grandma did, what we believe is right. I'm not saying just the ancient texts and the ancient scriptures within themselves were something that was written at a time that we have had a very limited access to in the vastness of what it truly is. And that is within the Christianity or the American culture, which was given the King James Version that we later developed variations of translations. But the Ethiopian Bible, which consists of 81 to 88 books, Catholicism Bible, I believe, has 71 books. The Bible as you know it as a book is something that has been touted, promoted, and pushed in our country as part of the culture. I'm here to let you know, as we expand and look to expand our consciousness, and let this video do what it does, and let your mind do what it will. But I'm here to let you know that you are in a cult. You are in a cult. If you are born in America, one of the big things to know is that although we may not believe or may not want to follow, but America has turned itself into a cult. And what defines that? What defines that? Because I said it earlier, a cult is at its core is a system of control based on unquestioned beliefs and enforced behavior. This is the truth, and don't ask questions. Not that we want to be in this cult, not that we are willing to sign up. But if you're a part of a culture, most likely you're a part of a cult. The difference is when we really look at that word, the word cult, is when we begin to question beliefs and when we begin to question the behaviors, when we begin to question the truth, when we begin to question the things that have that don't make any freaking sense. When stuff starts making you really not sit well with you, when you see kids in another country starving, you see people in another country, and you can tell, you can feel it in the core of your bones that if somebody is doing something to a certain group of people, there's something that should be able to question. You want to question, like, what is this? And that's where you start to understand, or to begin to, or want to understand. Miss Deidre, what you thinking?
So there was a hot question that was coming in, and I was typing the answer. And it was about the Catholic Church and the role of the Bible. So to get everybody level set on the history of the Catholic Church was the church.
Especially
right?
Western, especially
Western Christianity, right?
Yeah.
The Catholic Church, the Roman Catholic Church was the church. It was not until Martin Luther with the 95 Thesis that there became a division between Catholicism and what we now consider Protestantism, which is where a lot of the branches of modern day Christianity are founded. So Peter was the head of the church. He was the first bishop of the church. The term Catholic means the church. Okay, so that's important. So yes, the Catholic Church canonized or approved what would be considered the Bible, what everybody would read. This came down with Emperor Constantine and every succeeding pope after. Okay, why this is important is because once they established what would be read, then King James comes in 1611 when he has already written a book on demonology in 1597 because he was obsessed with demons. He's now the king of England. He wants to start a trade and he wants to get these bodies from Africa and wants to, start a slave trade. How do you do that? It is not true that the Catholic Bible is more correct. That has the accuracy of it has nothing to do. The accuracy of the Bible has nothing to do with the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church had the power because of colonization. The Catholic Church had the power because of colonization. There are roughly 88 books or 81 books. Starting like the Ethiopian or Coptic Bible, you will get 81 to 88 books. The numbers missing me right now. Where the books were found, the most ancient books. Okay. But the Romans were about colonization. This is why this is important when we're talking about cult and culture. Because with colonization, the people that were colonizing weren't satisfied with everybody else doing their own thing. They wanted to mind everybody else's business. And so because of power and control, they wanted to dictate what the culture was for everybody, including Africa. And so as colonization spread with the Roman Empire in Africa, so did, the books. They hid books. You might have the Apocrypha, you might have all these things. The point of it is that's why this conversation about cult and culture is important, because anybody with power, regardless of intention, if they have enough power, they can shape history.
Whoa.
I'm sorry.
Anybody with anybody with enough power can shape history. Anyone with enough power can shape history. Third time, anyone with enough power can shape history.
That's correct.
We are witnessing it today, real time, with the knowledge, the understanding, the ability to get the resources, connect to resources, so that we can learn how to navigate these waters. And that's why consciousness is an option, because your consciousness is where it's going to matter. How you think, how you are aware, how you are able to elevate, how you're able to manifest, how you're able to alchemize, all these things are going to come to play. Why is it prior to what we have known that they have used belief systems and religion to formulate this? Let's listen to what Mr. Johnson has to say about that. This is short.
These religions, the fact that they pop up everywhere with very similar structures, is due to common structures in our psychology that they appeal to, and not because the Buddha actually got enlightened or Jesus is actually the Son of God. And I think this route of critique, that religion is really a psychological phenomenon, is a deeply important one today. Because when most people convert today, what do they tell you? They appeal to their psychology, right? It's no longer miracles. It's no longer reason in scripture. It's, I was feeling down and God filled a hole in me. God made me feel whole. Or it's, I was so lost. And in the Buddha, in the Sangha, in the Dharma, I felt in a refuge. I think Nietzsche's clever response here is it's precisely because religion solves your psychological needs that you should be suspicious of it. Because that's the much more likely reason that it's spread, and not because it's actually true.
Religion solves a psychological need. Goes back to Carl Jung. Pain, pleasure. It is at your best interest today in America to be a person that branded Christian. Even when I grew up, to be branded a church person wasn't as powerful, as strong as I say it is today. Because they used to tease me, church boy. You know, they would call me church boy and they'd be shouting, doing all this, you know, teasing me. But in now today's term, it's part of the culture, right, in which we live. And it's psychological. Do you understand what I mean? Do you understand what this means? The reason why you're here with us and being a part of this community has a lot to do with your psychological needs. Pain, pleasure, what causes pain? What gives me pleasure, right? What makes me feel seen? What makes me feel loved? What makes me feel connected? What was the movie, Deidre, with what is his name? And he turned his volleyball into a thing, and it became thing. It was can't think of what.
You mean Tom Hanks with Will and he was talking to Wilson because he was stranded on the desert. Now I can't remember the name of the movie. I know exactly what you're talking about. He started talking to Wilson because he was stranded. I mean, I can't think of the movie.
Wilson. there is a
Somebody put it in the comments. We got the scene right, but I can't think of the name of the.
there is a
comment.
there is a level of torture that the pirates used to do. And one of the worst things that can ever happen to you as a pirate versus kicking you off the boat and you drown, either sharks eat you, but 9 times out of 10 you drown. You're just gonna last 24 hours maybe, and you're gonna go. But one of the worst things they could do, castaway, that's right. One of the worst things they could do is they could take you and put you on an island and leave you. What is one of the things that they do in prison when you get in trouble, when you
Put you in solitary.
You go in solitary. Human needs are not just human needs because we wanted to make up something about human needs. But human needs are tied psychologically to the makeup of who you are and your culture. I'm going to ask you something, and I want to bring this into perspective for you. And I want to see how you are elevating your consciousness. How are you moving in who you are? Because the more we tap in, tune in, turn on, turn up, turn out to this, when we begin to elevate who we are and connect to some of these things, it's not just to talk about it and just to be like, oh, wow, we're talking about it. This is to get you to be able to separate and understand, wait, I got a human need and I got a behavior that's going to drive me to this. This is all metaphysical. I got this going on, and I know I'm going to be hungry, and I got this behavior going on, and I want to do this. And you want to shift things in your life. Because if you don't pay attention to if you're not shifting and want to shift, you're just living and living and living. Living and dying go hand in hand. And you can choose how these things be in your life. You can choose how you want to live this life. And then sometime you can get to a point where, as you make the choices that we have, because they can be limited, but you can begin to tap in, tune in into who you are, and tap into your call, your purpose, your desires, your shifting. Speaking to you and doing this has been a desire of mine for many years. That's why I've done it with Bishop. But prior to that, I still had a social media channel. But did you know that planes, trains, and automobiles have been utilized just a little over 100 years? All of the stories and the bullshit we've been talking about when it comes to scripture, when it comes to belief, when it comes to the church, we talk about these wild and crazy out there things about history and how that history will play a role into the detriment of our soul and to our lives. When we just started freaking flying, we technically in the totality, that means the total, in the totality or total sum of the last 3,000 years of existence, knowing that human beings have been in existence far greater than 3,000 years, but they want to play you as stupid. But planes, trains, automobiles have only been in existence for 100 years. Psychology. Sigmund Freud first dropped his major work in 1900. 125 years ago. We just discovered what PTSD was. The mega church with all the big churches that you have today, less than 100 years, maybe 70, 60, 70. Everything that we have experienced in the past, and we looking at our history. Folks, I'm here to tell you, we only consider it old. We only consider it a considerable amount of time is because we don't get to exist on the planet over essentially 100 years. So we can only quantify and make sense of in history a whole bunch of stuff that we want to speculate on and hopefully get right. Everything that has taken place majorly in where we live today has happened within the last 100 or 200 years. But we're talking about constantly talking about the book in these scriptures that are ancient, that are 2,500, 3,000 years old. And we're just wasting our damn time. It's stupid. Yes, it's good to have some understanding of history so we don't repeat it. But for some reason, what are we doing? We're repeating it. Because I think it feeds itself. Remember the snake that eats its tail? The culture is eating itself. We're due in America, we are due for, if you look at a lot of models of societies, America's due for a collapse of an empire. And it's part of it is the capitalism and the capitalistic nature that we live in. So I'm here to tell you, if you feel crazy, or if there's ever a feeling crazy in this world, it's because the world itself is insane, y'all. We're living in a brand new human experiment, and no one has given us a manual. We're still running on tribal hardware with digital software. We're running on medieval minds and psychological traumas and the software. That's the hardware, the body and everything, but the software, the digital software. The culture is like a virus inside the code. And if you understand computers, there's firmware updates, and a firmware can only update a phone depending on what it is. Like this phone can handle all the latest iPhone updates up until a certain time, because the hardware, for the most part, supposedly in some sense, it makes sense, can't handle the updates. Sometimes they do things for money. Sometimes they make things that don't work. But essentially, the camera has changed. This has changed. Technology changes. So therefore, they have to create new systems and new programs and new ways of communication, new ways of thinking on that hardware in order for it to stay in alignment with the way things work. Your internet wouldn't be fast enough. We wouldn't be able to, if we didn't have high-speed internet and we were doing dial-up, you wouldn't be seeing me right now in HD. These things have to change, and the hardware has to change. And there's very few human beings on the planet that are able to shift their consciousness, shift their mind, shift their understanding. And typically they're engineers, they're scientists, they're people that have learned how to shift. And we get to remain stuck. And how do they keep us stuck? They keep us stuck just like they have kept us stuck for centuries. They keep you stuck based on your belief systems, your fear, and they use guilt and shame amongst the people in order to take you to tell you and to make you feel like you are out of your mind. The American Western Church is the foundation of the change that you want to see. And if we don't change it, you're going to get what we're getting. Because right now in our country, since it's the largest one, are you talking about Christianity? Christianity was weaponized when it started in our country, and it's used to be weaponized now. They used it to weaponize us with slavery, genocide, and patriarchy. And when you see the big, beautiful, modern church that has the same underbelly with a few different things that they change, the only thing that changes is they are more tolerant. It's just the modern machine. It's just capitalism dressed in robes, lights, cameras, because they still get their tithes. The true gospel of Jesus, the true gospel of Yeshua, if you were to hear the words and you were to see or you were to feel what that was, it would be so far mystical and so far magical and so far very elusive. It was so mystical. The gospel of America is political, completely whitewash. It's not about liberation. It's about conformity. It's about being a part of the cult. And why is that? Why is that? You're going to learn today some more stuff.
1950s. Women weren't voting or they didn't really have bank accounts, but man, they were baking cakes. That year, Betty Crocker had come up with a genius new product called Instant Cake Mix. All women had to do was take the cake mix, add water, and then bake it. Betty Crocker launched it to the market thinking they had cooked. But crickets. The instant cake mix was a flop. It didn't make sense. The cakes were delicious, convenient, quick. They should be smashing it. So what was going on here? They hired a team of psychologists to investigate, and what they found was pretty weird. The housewives didn't want to use the instant cake mix because it was too easy. There wasn't enough work involved for them to get any emotional benefit from baking the cake. In fact, the lack of effort required from them made them feel like they were cheating. They relaunched the product with the slogan, add an egg. And all of a sudden, sales skyrocketed and Instant Cake Mix was born. It turns out that the extra work of adding an egg gave people a sense of ownership over the final product. With one little crack, one big change took place. They went from feeling like they were cheating to feeling proud. 60 years later, a bunch of researchers wrote a paper called When Labor Leads to Love. And finally, this phenomenon had a name, the IKEA effect. Obviously named after the Swedish furniture company where you buy the items flat packed and then take them home and argue with your partner about how to put them together. The IKEA effect is a psychological bias where people place higher value on things that they helped create. The researchers found that when we put effort into something, that thing stops being a thing and starts being part of us. Meaning the more effort we put into something, the more emotionally invested we are in that thing. And when you're more emotionally invested in something, you're more loyal, protective, and obsessive about that thing. Take Crocs, for example. Why are Crocs people like that? Well, it's partially because of the genius of gibbets. Just like adding an egg, gibbets give you the opportunity to invest effort. You find the exact right combination of gibbets to represent you, and suddenly your Crocs isn't just a shoe, it's an extension of you. It's the same with Build-A-Bear. Then there's Lego, Fortnite skins, Starbucks, where you don't just buy a drink, you build a drink. And Meta is obsessed with asking me to make everything my own. Once you see it, it's so transparent. These companies know that if they can get their customers to add an egg, we stop being just customers and we become co-creators, which they know makes us use, buy, and love love their stuff more. But how does this all lead back to the cult-like fandoms of Taylor Swift and Joe Rogan? The cult.
She's going to get into more of the way this phenomenon works. Why am I showing you that and revealing that to you? The IKEA effect. What is one of the key and only key, the main and only key on the IKEA effect to human behavior? Because they hired a team of who? Not a theologians. You don't go to a church and then get some scholars to be like, hey, tell me about studying human behavior. All they want to do is technically study what they believe the past was and then try to calculate a deity that says no one can really calculate that deity. The IKEA effect. What you think, Deidre? You know, we talking about that book.
I know.
We talking about the book. What would any belief system be if it doesn't have its sacred text?
Correct. Exactly. I think back to, I'm going to always go back to my cult, ATRs, but before those were oral traditions, they're all oral traditions, right? Passed down. And so the way to psychologically rewire, you created text and you forbid talking or communicating, and you force people to read this book. Now, I'm not trying to take anybody's Bible or Jesus away. What I'm saying is there were societies that were functioning, Buddhism, Sikhism, all the ATRs, they all existed pre-Christianity. And they are still here. The newest one here to the table is Christianity, especially Westernized Christianity.
Western, yeah.
Especially Western, right? And now we got 47,000 translations of the Bible. We have 47 denominations of Protestantism alone. And I'm not even sure if evangelicalism should even be considered Protestantism anymore, because it's such a vast, it's not even in line with Martin Luther anymore. Like, I feel like it should be its own third split. Because it's nonsensical at this point, right? So
we're due for what we're experiencing is we're due for
that split
revolution.
Yeah.
In the sense that people are going to believe what they're going to believe. And if they don't find something to believe, it will lean into something to believe.
Exactly.
Because of the human psychology. Go ahead.
Right. When we've been talking about cult and culture, I think one of the things that is really important to understand, and America's really good at this, is cult of personality. Right? Cult of personality is kind of building something around it. We see this all the time, like with our cult of personalities. You got your Swifties, you got your beehives, you got your, whatever your favorite group is. Do you know who else has adopted that now?
Who's that?
Churches.
Oh, yeah.
Churches have adopted it. Of course, it's in politics, right? Like, you're always voting for your favorite person, right? But churches have adopted that, this cult of personality.
Yes.
When the megachurch trend started, megachurches were rare. But because of America's nature being a capitalistic society, once people saw the few megachurches and how successful they were, everybody started trying to mimic that, to build that. And now you have a lot of cult of personalities that are called churches. Can I say it that way? They're not churches. They are cults of personalities. People are not following their view of God. They're following the person.
Yeah.
And they think that their growth is in the person that's leading them.
It's limited from the beginning. Like it was
Absolutely.
limited. It's limited
Absolutely.
from its inception. It was limited. Do not question. Do not. Right. And if you question, and when people start questioning, they say, I don't believe that. And then they start something new.
I mean, literally we'll start something new, like a whole denomination new.
Yeah.
Like literally.
That's,
you know, when Martin Luther split from the Catholic Church, the 95 Thesis, that was the first, like, eh. And then after that, it just branched off into everything. You got the Baptist Church, their whole thing is baptism. I know because I was in it. Got it, baptism.
and it's
Then
old. It's one of the
Yeah.
oldest.
It's one of the oldest. And then you got apostolics that are like, well, if you don't go down in Jesus' name, you ain't baptized at all.
You right what you are what one of
We
the
start
things
parsing things. We start parsing things.
there's one thing I would like to tap into just a little bit since it's so hot right now.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not but this little thing
That
here.
has an allegiance that has
Oh Lord,
allegiance
yes.
other than Jesus. You're in a
Yeah.
lie.
He just mad he didn't get
I don't care what bishop just crossed over. I don't care none of that stuff. I'ma stay with this book that has an allegiance other than Jesus.
What did he say?
an allegiance other than Jesus.
And what are his key words?
Oh,
I'm gonna
I'm gonna stick with this book. Yes.
Right? Because the book has all the power over the people.
And he's speaking specifically of Black Greek letter organizations. And I just went to school. Bishop Winans, just in case, I haven't seen him since the 90s. But let's go ahead and just say, sir, my grandmothers, my great aunties, all them, they love them some Jesus.
The foundation.
And the foundation of Black Greek letter organizations literally came out of church.
But
and to give back to society and build community and help and service to the community and uplift the community. It's the things that the churches should be doing today.
Here's the problem, Deidre. Here's the direct problem. Here is where we have the major problem with what we're really going to be dealing with and what we're dealing with. And that is, who has the right Jesus? Who has the right word?
Say that
what
again?
Word is right?
Say that again. Who got the right what?
Who has the right Jesus?
Oh, okay.
Right? And the Jesus that wins is the Jesus that has the most money, the Jesus that has the most people. The Jesus that wins is the one that has the most money and the most people. And if you have the talking points,
my God.
If you have the talking points of the people that do that, you will feel like you are 100% right, and you will use words that demonizes everyone else, unwillingly building an empire and an entity that's going to ultimately want to destroy you. Listen to this guy here briefly. This is Jamal. But we're going to listen briefly.
For a ethno-nationalist living community called Return to the Land. This new construction project, you're not going to believe it, as we are in 2025, is for whites only. The membership-driven plots are reserved for those with European ancestry only. Pastor, why we gotta own some houses? Because I want poor white people to have to pay you rent. That even if they don't give us reparation, they gonna have to pay us back one way or another.
Listen,
So you know how I
this
talk
is
about
where
that
I want-
black triumvirate of the church plant pastors, the black Greek letter organizations, the Prince Hall Freemasons, and the black civic organizations, the media, the politicians, the athletes, the entertainers, the
Notice the church
directors,
says
all the
Alabama
people
on
that
it.
are considered quote unquote elite, and how they conspire to keep black people in a permanent state of victimhood. You have to understand something. The Bible has warned us about these people, and especially about the quote unquote black church. Now, when I'm talking about the black church, let me reiterate, I'm talking about those churches that don't preach the true gospel of Jesus Christ.
So who has the true gospel of Jesus Christ?
Roll
He
Tide. Roll Tide.
He's
Because I mean, he's got the Alabama. I mean, he got the.
he's claiming his own authority, but he's doing it as a black man. He's called the biblical
I'm
conservative.
talking about those churches that preach the black liberation, the Marxist, the communist, the socialistic gospel that was passed
All
down from
conservative
James
talking
Cone
points.
and people of that lineage. That's the quote unquote black church. I'm not talking about churches that are predominantly black that preach the gospel of Jesus Christ. Those are two different churches. But the danger with the quote unquote black church is
Our
that
word.
it ties into the division that the enemy wants to set up and is looking to set up in these last days.
So it's danger. It's the enemy. It's the last day.
Jesus talked about this in Matthew 24 when he says nation
Scripture.
will rise against nation or war against nation. That word nation in the Greek means ethnos. Ethnicities will fight against ethnicities. And the problem that you have in the quote unquote black church is that it has been taken over by Marxists and communists and socialists that want to use the racial grievances, the racial atrocities of the past, and keep pushing this notion that black folks are not liberated. And that's dangerous because what that does, it sets up a mindset in a lot of people, especially black folks, black women that go to these churches, that their problems are outside of them. That the word of God alone, that their relationship with Christ alone, if they have a relationship with Christ, is not powerful enough to solve your problems.
Okay,
See
Uncle
how-
Ruckus. Lord have mercy. Jesus.
He's intertwining all of these things, intertwining all of these things as truth. And really, it's his theory and his opinion,
Yeah, it's all conflation.
right?
It's all conflated. Oh my goodness.
This has been up for 11 days. 3 days. 11,000 people have seen it and 209 comments. What is this? This is basically, a lot of times this could be a silo for this kind of bullshit, right? Because you're going to get the same thing from Pastor Philip Anthony. You're going to get the same thing from other pastors. While he's talking about these things, we're going to keep going. We're going to take it a little step further. It's cool that we can see that there's other people that are not allowing him to promote this, and people are actually voicing this man is a disgrace. He's nothing but a joker in a clown suit. None of that has anything to do with salvation. Seems like a political rally than a church, right? There's people that are connecting to what he is saying, but then there's people that are actually connecting to what against what he's saying. Like, but what happens is with us in the church, and what happens people within this space, if we don't bring any kind of connection to the fallacies, the average everyday person hear what a person like this has to say, listen to it, and to begin to vote against their own interests, begin to do things against their own livelihood, and have no idea. That's enough of that, dude.
So, okay, let me say this. I hope I'm not going to get in trouble. Disclaimer. This is my opinion and my opinion only. What is about to be expressed is not the views of Expanding Consciousness community. This is seriously only Deidre's opinion. Any system, socialism, Marxism, communism, any system in the wrong hands,
come on,
is going to destroy community, is going to make a leader rich. Any system.
Yeah.
This is what happens when you this is what happens when you just read the textbook and you don't ask critical questions. Let me tell you why. Communism, like I said, my opinion, communism in and of itself as an ideology is not a problem. Communism at the root is saying that as a government structure, everybody, the people that you are responsible for, everybody should have enough. A home, food, resources. That's just fundamental. I don't want to hear about the Red Scare. I don't want to hear about the Bay of Pigs. I can go toe to toe with anybody on history. America is a capitalistic society, a capitalistic patriarchal society. They wanted everybody to be the boogeyman so that they could keep making more money. Okay? Everybody becomes the enemy to America when other countries are teaching their people to think for themselves and to not rely on empire. Now, that's just my 2 cents. I could talk to you about several books you could read to expand your knowledge of this. The Wretched of the Earth by Frantz Fanon. It's over 50 years old. The Pedagogy of the Oppressed by Paulo Freire. That is over 50 years old. Look at COINTELPRO and what they did with the Black Panther Party. The Black Panther Party wanted to make sure that their community in Oakland was safe, that their children didn't go hungry, that they had resources to read and be elevated educationally, that they wouldn't be subjected to police brutality. And when they armed themselves, that's when there were gun laws started to be imposed. Again, if we just take the government's word for things, especially when you look at the 50s and 60s and how that all trajectory played out with the communism, the Red Scare, all that foolishness. If you go back and look, you will see how this stuff is replaying now and making everybody else the boogeyman. It's your neighbor. They're from Mexico. It's your neighbor. They're from El Salvador. It's your neighbor. Ooh, they might be a criminal. It's the same playbook, you guys. And who's really the enemy? Who butts themselves in everybody's business? It's a country called America. We tend to get in everybody's business, but don't mind our own. We tend to get in everybody's business who's trying to feed their people, yet we can't even feed our own starving children today in this country. So that's just my 2 cents. The gentleman who was giving that story about Marxism and all that stuff, it just sounded like a bunch of nonsense I heard in high school.
Well, the thing is they are using 100%. They're using, just like they have before, the psychology of human needs
and us versus them, kind of the us versus them. You got to make sure you got what you have because they trying to take all your stuff.
And that's 100% human psychology. Yep. What's crazy is he believes what he's talking about.
He absolutely does. And in that respect, I can't undo that for that gentleman. He sincerely believes that.
Believes what he's talking about. What you have to do.
Yeah.
What you have to do. And I say have to because you really don't. But remember, I said consciousness is not an option. you're already halfway there if you are here.
Right.
Because you have the option to cut it off, to not believe what I say. And I'm here to tell you, don't necessarily believe what I say. Learn and know so that you know what to do. Because with the Church of God in Christ, who is Protestant, full of very, very beautiful people that really mean well, that really, truly want to love God or something and move themselves out the way. There are lots of those people I grew up with that were genuine. But where the heritage and where the system of government understands is that we are so deeply rooted and so deeply connected to the belief system that we typically will accept anyone that uses the words. This guy here is very controversial, and I'm not going to play. I just wanted to see. He's talking about Freemasons, fraternities, and sororities, and then he puts those in competition with someone taking something away from God. And really what he's getting to is he's getting to making himself more powerful than anything else. Himself, not God, not anything. He wants to make himself more powerful than anything. This guy here, if you listen to him and watch him, he's the most arrogant motherfucker ever. And forgive me if anybody listens to me and they're not used to me saying that, but I'm serious. He is freaking like arrogant, out of this world. And there's people that are in the church that are so arrogant and so narcissistic, that kind of like Kenneth Copeland, and they are pretty much on the next side of evil when it comes to what and how they feel about people, because they think you are sheep, they think you are stupid, and they want to do nothing but tell you what to believe, tell you how to believe it, and tell you how those beliefs should affect you. Come on, bro. Like, we have accepted a lot of this stuff for a lot of our lifetime. And I'm here to tell you, we are in a predicament. We're in a predicament. And that predicament is going to go and it's going to do what it's going to do. I'm here to tell you, it's going to do it because it's already working, right? There's a recolonization. This is the cult of America. I'm here to let you know that you are American more than anybody else. You are, especially black folks that are in America. This is where we were born. We don't know anything. We know very little about our history. We know very little about our traditions. We know very little about our tribes. We have to guess. And I'm here to tell you that you are just as American as any other person that wants to claim to be American. Fighting against who wants to be considered this. Expanding your consciousness is vital. Very vital. And the reason why is because things are going to be set forth. And it has been. And I want you to hear a little bit about some modern stuff. And we'll be out of here. on what's really going on and what's really happening.
Citizenship speech wasn't just another round of nationalist rhetoric. It's a clear articulation of a strategy. And he's laying the groundwork to redefine what it means to be an American by returning us to a constitutional foundation that led to civil war once before. Hey folks, I'm Tad Sturmer, public historian and a scholar of American history. The speech was delivered to the Claremont Institute, a far-right think tank that, along with the Heritage Foundation, is responsible for much of the ideological scaffolding of this regime, especially when it comes to immigration, which is all they really want to talk about. Citizenship, belonging. Their mission is to strip Americanness down to bloodline, down to ancestry, not shared principle. You won't surprise you that principle is something they are not interested in. And Vance is their perfect mouthpiece, not a thinker, great mouthpiece. In this vision, being born here ain't enough. Agreeing with American ideals, to the extent they can be articulated, ain't enough. No more melting pot. Turn off Schoolhouse Rock. It's all too inclusive. That's post-Civil War thinking, and it threatens the racial and cultural homogeneity they want to impose or reimpose. Instead, Vance, he argues that being American should be based on heritage. If your ancestor fought in the American Revolution or the Civil War, he doesn't say which side, and we all know he doesn't care, then you have a stronger claim to being American than someone born here today, including, say, I don't know, his wife. These are not deeply reflective people, but they are disciplined in their messaging. And what they're building is a calculated return to the First Republic, which we've talked about before, which we'll talk about again. The one created by the Patriot Republicans, codified in the Constitution of 1787, and sustained until it was destroyed in 1865 by the only thing that could stop it, war, a body count, not collapse, not compromise, not debate, not protest, not reform. It had to be ended by United States soldiers and sailors, white and black, by blood. Even the earliest historians of the American Revolution, writing during the Constitution's framing to make sure that it was an informed approach, made that explicit. David Ramsey and his contemporaries described the American Revolution and citizenship in the republic it produced as the exclusive domain of white men. Black people explicitly could not ever be citizens. In the 1790 Naturalization Act, the first federal Congress got right to this, making it law. Only free white persons could become citizens through naturalization. And Chief Justice Roger Taney, in the Dred Scott decision in 1857, about 65 years later, gave the first republic its most honest expression. Black people, he wrote, had no rights the white man was bound to respect according to the founders. Not because they were enslaved, but because they were black. He wrote for a 6-3 majority. All of the justices wrote their own opinions, but Taney represented the answer to the particular questions that were before them, the number one being, were black people citizens? Taney represented why their answer was no. And why? Because they were descended from different ancestors than white Americans. They lacked a history of freedom. They were by birth and blood outside of what Taney called the political family of the United States. Sound familiar? That's what this regime wants back. And it's making real progress, folks, not just in think tank manifestos, not just in seminar rooms, but in Supreme Court decisions and legislative threats. This is the rollback of birthright citizenship. This is the slow erasure of the 14th Amendment. And the Civil War should have ended this debate. That body count should have stood. The 14th Amendment guaranteed that all persons born or naturalized in the United States are citizens. It was designed to obliterate the language of the Dred Scott decision. It made possible the multiracial democracy we've only ever half built. But Vance says it went too far. He wants to shrink the circle again. And if you look at the demographics of who fought in the American Revolution and the Civil War, it's no mystery what that means. Heritage citizenship is just racial citizenship rebranded. It's another way to say, if white men are your ancestors, then you're okay. Yeah, there were black patriots, and nearly 200,000 black soldiers fought for the United States in the Civil War. but they don't count in Vance's framework, and the Black loyalists erased. But Confederate ancestors, by the way, certainly included. Again, these people are not reflective because it's not about service. It's not about being a traitor. It's about blood. It's about building a legal framework that redefines Americanness through whiteness and through nostalgia for a time when it was official policy backed up by the arm of the state. And this isn't a conspiracy theory. It's a declared agenda. It's there. Look it up. Project 2025 lays it out in plain language, and all of these executive orders back it up. End birthright citizenship, dismantle civil rights protections, expand mass deportations, eliminate anti-white DEI programs. And the 1776 Commission, that's their counter to honest history. It whitewashes slavery, diminishes civil rights struggles, and sanitizes the founders to justify building the First Republic all over again. But what's the real problem for them? Well, it's the expansion of rights. From Reconstruction to the Voting Rights Act to Roe and Title IX, it unravels their white male power fantasy. It pushes women out of the kitchen and men into their parents' basements. And now they want the old structure back. That's what heritage citizenship means to them. It's not rhetoric, it's not nostalgia, and it's not just Trump. It's the past, but the past has a blueprint. J.D. Vance's recent heritage.
This talk was based on a J.D. Vance chatting. I don't necessarily need us to get too far into the weeds of the depth of this conversation, but I just want you to know that as this man, a white American man that's saying this, is speaking on behalf of history, what he understands, and how they're using the awareness and consciousness of the individual people, a lot of individual people in our country, to get them to agree. And we, as part of this cult, because we live here, have to look at how we're going to move forward. The reason why we have this and the reason why these things are doing this have a lot to do with human psychology. And we're using, and they have used, the church to really, as they done before, to move it forward. Let's take a little while and listen to this psychiatrist, which is based on science.
People often wonder is, how did religious people, how do Christians, how do evangelicals end up supporting Trump? How do people of faith end up supporting a man who is now a felon with multiple convictions, who has been very known and by his own admission behaved in extremely misogynistic ways towards women, including sexual assault and violence, which he's also been found culpable of in a court, who is regularly found to be dishonest and who is consistently abusive and derogatory to other people? How does any of that chime with Christian values? How does any Christian find themselves supporting a man like that? Well, there's been quite a bit of thinking about this in psychological circles and also some academic papers published about it. Such a big question is this, that it's ended up finding its way into academia. And there's some really interesting psychological theories around this. It all starts, as do most things in the world of psychology, in the childhood. How is somebody raised in a Christian, often fundamentalist Christian household? Well, the first rule in those households tends to be adherence to certain behaviors, being able to follow a Christian morality, Christian ways of behaving, and certain codes of conduct. And that requires some highly regimented, rigid, uncompromising parenting, where the child is required to adhere to black and white rules on a regular basis and given little space to emote or demur or push against the boundaries that are set for them. Some very firm boundaries are laid down and they're required to follow them. Now, I know, as raising small children myself right now, that actually, of course, boundaries are important, but it's also important to give the child the space to emote, to react, to push back, to actually experience the whole range of emotions. And that might not be comfortable for the parent to allow for that space, but it's important for them in their process of development and growing. And we all struggle with that all the time. But actually, where you have more fundamentalist type of parenting, that involves little or no space for defiance or transgression. They are absolutely regimented into certain ways of being that they have to follow, otherwise they are punished, sometimes severely, and sometimes that involves violent corporal punishment. So this kind of upbringing is a very authoritarian, top-down upbringing, giving no space to the person being raised, and all the space exists in the parent figure. And that then turns them into authoritarians themselves, which is why it passes from one generation to another. And that authoritarian upbringing leads to authoritarians who themselves then become authoritarians to their children. But it also means that they have within them this template of what leadership should look like. It should give no truck to alternatives. There should be no space for debate, for dialogue, for uncertainty. It should be black and white, and they should know their place within that dynamic where they cannot question, they cannot challenge. There is no openness to any contest of the hierarchy. And that is what Donald Trump is essentially the personification of. So he may not have the other qualities in terms of his virtues and ethics and just basic honesty that they would ordinarily want to promote. But what he does have is the most important thing of all, which is an extreme authoritarian personality, a total top-down mentality. And that is exactly how they were raised. And they almost fall into a trance when they see that. They feel they have to fall in line with that because that's how they were brought up in the first place.
And then the whole Trumpist ethos is about wielding power. And so here you have an opening for the Christian nationalist, Christian authoritarian type, because they have a kind of mind meld with Trump and their view of power. So I think if you talk to people who have any real experience with the Trump administration, they know who he is. Many other Republican presidents don't have the same, or Republican candidates don't have the same authoritarian view of the world. And so they're not going to have that mind meld with these more Christian authoritarian voices.
And some of these academic papers talk almost about a trance-like state that people fall into when they're faced with such extreme top-down pyramidal hierarchy before them, and they just slot into it. Because Donald Trump provides them that notion of I alone can fix it. I am the leader who you must follow, and you have no choice. You have no space. You have no room and no argument to make in this place. When they hear that, they almost fall into a trance behind it, because to them, that is almost soothing, because it reminds them of their childhood. That's the quality he has for them, and it supersedes any other ethical or moral quality, which is why despite his transgressions, despite his criminality, despite his multiple sins, he has what they really want. The iron fist with which they themselves were raised. Thank you for watching my video. I'm a psychiatrist.
Ooh, he got the iron fist. He got that iron fist, Deidre.
Yeah, I mean, he's a good actor.
He got that iron fist. Absolutely. But one of the things is a trance-like state, and it's almost soothing.
If you still a 5-year-old in your brain.
Which deals with trauma, but that's what he was saying. He said that he said the firm boundaries, little or no space, corporal punishment. I grew up that way. Because you know why I grew up that way? It was that.
Yeah.
It was passed down to generations, because one of the things in the scriptures, it said, spare the rod, spoil the child.
Yep.
Another thing is we got that right in our face from slavery. We got it from the Bible. We got it from Christianity, that we thought that was the thing.
That's right.
Honestly, it's only been in my 40s that I really truly discovered that the vastness of Christianity. just
Right.
really dig deep into understanding the vastness of Christianity.
Right.
I was in my 40s.
Right.
But it's understandable considering the fact that our country is really only 400 years old, but then over the last 200 years have we made all these advancements.
That part.
So it is time for us to awaken to what we don't understand, but we know is not necessarily true or right.
Right.
We understand where these people might be coming from and why they may be doing what they're doing. But I'm
Yes.
here to also not necessarily just sit back and think we're talking conservative. It comes down to it where this has a lot to do with how we have established what America actually is. And we all know because we live in this thing. It comes down
Yes.
to money. Listen to what Bernie Sanders says on
All
Fox.
day. All day.
Democratic Party is now at 41% favorable. Why is that? Why is it so
And the
underwhelming?
Republicans are a whole lot better.
A little bit better, but
Yeah.
not a whole lot.
That's the
I
right
agree.
I'll tell you why. People understand that the political system in this country is largely corrupt. Both parties. Why is that? You know the answer. The answer is that you have billionaires in both political parties determine what legislation gets to the floor and who is the candidate. Right now, let me give you both examples. You're in the Republican Party and you say, you know what? I don't like this Trump idea of giving massive tax breaks to the rich and cutting Medicaid and education. You get up and say that. What happens to you? The next day, Elon Musk says, I got unlimited amounts of money. We're going to run a candidate in a primary against you. Democratic Party side? What happens if somebody says, you know what? Maybe it's not a good idea to fund Netanyahu's war machine, which is creating starvation for children in Gaza. I'm going to vote against that. Next day, AIPAC is going to be running against you. We have a corrupt campaign finance system. Billionaires in both political parties are calling the tunes. The American people understand that.
So you think it's a game.
Right.
Because guess what? It really is for them.
Mm-hmm.
Once you yield a certain amount of, is that me? Oh, I was like, where does that come from? Once you get a certain level of power, once you get a certain level of finance, a lot of these people have already had it. It could get boring. And you want to keep your money. You want to keep your power. I'm not here to discuss them or to understand them and understand that space. And I'm talking about the multi-billionaire space. But I'm here to let you know. It's not a game, although it's a game for a lot of people. I think I accidentally killed my screen because I had one other video queued up, and even though we see this surface stuff that's happening, and eventually they're going to move Donald Trump out. Donald Trump's going to be moved out. He's older. And they're going to move in what they really, really, truly desire and want in their space. Because what the system really wants, it wants black people, and it's okay with black people and the black churches to be confused and to be fighting amongst each other about whose gospel's right, who's got the right Jesus. If you're serving Jesus, if you're serving Greek, that's the dumbest conversation ever when we consider that in the early mid 1800s, and you had HBCUs and they developed their own Greek organizations. It was all about a brotherhood and everything else. the black people that speak against those are basically nothing but puppets for the Christian nationalism. They don't understand that. They may or not, but most of them don't understand it. And so they talk about these frivolous things like end times and what God is going to do. And everything is related to your demise, your death. Everything's related to your death. They can't tell you about what's going to change your life tomorrow. They can't tell you about if you invest or if you do this, all of a sudden, right? I'm getting knowledge and understanding so I can help you shift who you are. I can help you begin to love who you are. Or at minimum, at least tell you some kind of information related to why is the world seeming to be this way? Why are things going this way? You learned about cognitive biases today, about how you develop a cult-like following. There's usually something that you use because we don't have a choice. God and the deity is part of human psychology or psychosis. If you're an atheist, you have something else that can fulfill or not fill that gap. But you have the privilege to understand that you don't need all the culture, or you don't need the people, or you don't need family, or you don't need the people like in the black church to be for you, to be at least care, to the most thuggish of the most wildest people, like people, will still talk about going to church or still talk about believing in God in a monotheistic way. We don't know much about spirituality, African spirituality, let alone understanding what does it mean to expand your consciousness and understand what does it mean to how do we apply some of our ancient text and using it for something we can embody. And then if we want to get into the parapsychology and get into spiritual matters and get into esoteric things, that we have the ability, African spirituality, we have the ability to do that and see how it works for us without having the fear that you're going to tap and tune into some demonic force and all of a sudden you're going to end up what? That all is based on the power. It's all based on the cult of America. And we are here to redefine and bring forth and do our job. The people before us done their job to help us have some level of freedom. We have to do our job. Because what is to come and what is taking place is based and built on philosophies that I've said before. One guy being Curtis Yarvin, really implementing a lot of his work, and a lot of the billionaire class. I'm not speaking against billionaires. I'm talking about an ideology of power that so happens to be people that have billions of dollars, and what they are currently doing. There are a group of them that are currently doing something within our country. And essentially all of them, for the most part, are fighting for the same resources, are trying to take the same resources. We all need the same resources, whether it be food. And how do you get food? You need money, you need precious metals, you need gold. So we go pillage, like I said to someone earlier, you go pillage Africa, you pillage America, and you steal and you take all of its resources based on your power. Then you create a philosophy, you create an ideology, you create a belief system, and you say, do this so that this grandiose deity doesn't come and get you. And I got the power to say what's right or wrong, but I'm going to use the Bible and say, but I'm following the Bible. Which one? Why is it that we can't look at the Ethiopian Bible? Why is it that we can't dig into the Gospel of Thomas or Mary Magdalene? Why is it that we can't study and read about the Essenes? Why is it that we can't get into and connect to some of the biblical history that can better relate to us as kind of philosophical texts, give us and shed some light? If we combine all the psychology, a science that's over 100 years old, we're still learning how the mind works, yet it has been used to manipulate behavior and take advantage of us at an industrial scale, essentially by software engineers that are being hired by these people. These people such as Peter Thiel, who's following the philosophies essentially of people like Curtis Yarvin. And we're going to do a short video just to understand who this man is.
I want to play for you one of the most chilling clips I've ever heard. And just hold on and trust me, because it's not that chilling until you realize what it means.
The basic idea was that we could never win an election on getting certain things because we were in such a small minority. But maybe you could actually unilaterally change the world without having to constantly convince people and beg people and plead with people who are never going to agree with you through a technological means. And this is where I think technology is this incredible alternative to politics.
That's tech billionaire and Republican megadonor Peter Thiel speaking at a Libertopia, a libertarian conference in 2010. He's basically saying that his political ideology is so unappealing that it'll never win elections. And that's one thing he's right about, because he's railed against women having the right to vote, complained so much about diversity, and written some really disgusting stuff about sexual assault and consent. But he knows that he can use technology as a unilateral alternative to politics, and that should really freak you out. Thiel is one of the co-founders and biggest investors in Palantir, a CIA-funded technology company that has contracts across the government for their data software. Here's their CFO speaking a few years ago.
We continue to advance our mission of becoming the US government's central operating system as we extend our footprint across defense, healthcare, and civilian agencies.
And while both President Obama and Biden did sign Palantir contracts, President Trump is taking it way further. There are new contracts with ICE, something literally called Immigration OS, and the IRS. So 15 years ago, Peter Thiel, like the supervillain in a movie explaining his plan to the hero, admitted that he can use technology to get his ideas across when they're unpopular, completely subverting democracy. And today, one of his technology companies is gaining more and more power within the government, building the very systems our government relies on. And oh yeah, this is the CEO.
The central risk to Palantir and America and the world is a regressive way of thinking that is corrupting and corroding our institutions, that calls itself progressive, but actually, and is called woke, but is actually a form of a thin pagan religion.
If you're a progressive, if you have progressive values, meaning you just, care about other people, the CEO of the company building America's technological back end thinks of you as the central risk. He thinks of you as the enemy. Are these the people you want running the systems you rely on, or worse, the systems that surveil you?
The CEO said that what we believe outside of what they want to implement and make money on is that it is a pagan religion. He said, Peter Thiel said, change the world, but he knows that they won't agree with him. So the best way to do that, the best way to infiltrate is to use technology and to do things that are against your voting power, against your want or desire. And Peter Thiel lately has been having conversations because he understands how to yield and get power 100% based on religion. Because he was saying and he was speaking on the Antichrist as though he is preparing to fight the Antichrist or to be. And so therefore, he's been able to get people to believe him, especially those who have been pre-exposed to religious beliefs, and they are using people that are pre-exposed to religious beliefs, to religion, specific Western Christianity. He's using those people by communicating, speaking, and acting like his message fits within their agenda. When you throw in technology, an algorithm that knows you better than your pastor, a dopamine loop that replaces your intuition, that means that we're constantly on these devices and constantly doing these things, and we're in a dopamine loop. We can't get anywhere. And our intuition of discernment and all that they try to talk about, you don't have no discernment or intuition. You have no discernment. Oh, use your discernment. How you going to have discernment when you're being controlled by the very devices? That Bible app that you're using is very limited because, it's on a phone. Like you are being manipulated, or people are being manipulated and controlled. You can curate an identity feed within 60 seconds. AI cults, tech cults, hustle cults, spiritual cults, cancel cults, all the cults. Everyone has a belief and no one is for sure of theirs. We're swimming in this cult that is part of our nature, cult nature. And most of us don't even know that we are even wet. We're even in the water. So why consciousness is no longer an option? I'll be done by 10:30 my time. The question isn't, do you believe in something? The real question is, what is guiding you? What is running you? What is telling you what to believe? What is telling you what to think? What is the belief under the belief? That's how we talk about this when being beyond belief. What is the belief under the belief? So whose voice is inside that self-talk that telling you? Because is it your voice or is it all the stuff that we're taking in? Who benefits from their version or your version of God? This is why consciousness is no longer an option. It's not a vibe. It's not a cool like thing. This is about survival and how we are to head into the future. You are in the future, folks. The future is here. It is now, period. Point blank. You need to know it. Expanding consciousness is no longer just some woo-woo principles about things that are optional. Either you begin to know or learn, or we allow things to happen almost like it's centuries before us. This is survival. It's a level of survival. If you don't choose your beliefs, someone will choose it for you. If you don't wake up, you'll be used. We already are used for labor. We're used for votes. We're used for identity wars, and all those things lead to profits. So it's time that we understand what I mean by deconstruct. Here, I want to leave you with the fact that this is a spiritual rebellion. More than anything, what we need is a spiritual rebellion. All the stuff that we have experienced with church, all the stuff we experience with what to believe and why to believe that, and then them telling you why. Do this and do that, and you better get into the word, because if you don't get into the word, you telling me about this ancient text, but we still here wondering how the hell we got here in the last 200 years, and we're not making certain levels of progress with human concern. You're signing bombs and missiles. Even if I don't like somebody, or if I have an enemy, I'm still not a person that wants to sign the bomb that's going to go take them out. If we have a perceived enemy and we have to do something, why don't we just handle it? And why do we have to glorify in it? Even if something happens to some of your family, or, I've had things happen to my family before, and justice is justice, but I don't see no glory in the fact that it was like, yeah. But the spiritual rebellion, that's when we begin to question your culture, to reclaim the spirit and the soul of who you are, deconstruct the programming, and to rebuild the power of who we are as we go through these things, to go beyond our belief and meet the true self, who you really are. And I'm here to edge you on to question everything, especially where we weren't supposed to ask questions. Break the loop, break the chain in the culture, this nature. And I want you to know, you ain't crazy. You ain't never crazy. This is a revolution that doesn't necessarily require guns. This revolution in this situation is requiring questions, awareness, feeling the frequency, raising your vibration, not feeding into lower vibrations. When people come towards you or people working against you, when you feeling and understanding that something is out of alignment. That's why it's important for you to do the work. It's important for you to do the work, asking the question on your own life. What do I believe? Why do I believe that? And how do those beliefs add to or subtract to the quality of my life? If I've been born into something, raised doing something, is that something that I was born and raised in helping me grow? Is it helping me grow? Is it giving me the answers or the keys to who I am, what I am, why I am? And on here, we focusing on expanded, or the expansion of consciousness. Understand. I'm gonna give y'all something real quick put this on the screen. Come on now. This thing is not one to act right because I want it on the screen. Expanded consciousness is more, it's not just some fluff words, something that I'm just saying. I don't know why my computer is doing that. There we go. It won't fit at all, but we will push it up there. Expanded consciousness, a state of heightened awareness, perception, often associated with mystical experiences, meditation, or even drug use. And when they say drugs, most likely they're talking about psilocybin, cannabis. There's other ones, DMT. There's various different things that have been studied where one's sense of self, who I am, and the world around them may feel like expanded, or may feel transformed, may feel different, may feel like something's different, something I know is off, something is not quite right. We're beginning to ask questions. It involves exploring deeper states of consciousness, potentially leading to increased self-awareness, connection with others, and a sense of purpose. If that is something that resonates with you, welcome. Meditation is one of the useful tools. Contemplation of practices of who you are. That can involve various spiritual practices and religious practices. I'm okay with it. I am not an atheist, or I am not anti to the atheism. If that's who you are and what you are, so be it. It is lived experiences that matter, and you have to make the decision for yourself what works for you and what doesn't work for you. I'm becoming more and more mystical, where all I know is who I am today. And that can be confusing even for myself. There are many levels and things that we don't understand about consciousness. It's not something that is easily understood, but it's something that I believe and know that we tap into. For me, it's a frequency. For me, it is spirited in mathematical form. And so, with that said, I hope you guys really enjoyed this evening. I hope you got something out of it. And if you really did, we can continue some of this. We are still working on, and inside the book, The Spiritual Warrior, what I would like to do is help you, and as the old church word, equipped, how we can build up, get you with an understanding of how to build up who you are. The heart, an exercise for loving yourself, right? An exercise for observing the life on earth, being able to understand who you are, becoming a spiritual warrior, what it is, waking yourself up. How do you know you sleep? If you haven't done any of the work, if you haven't sat back and said, I'm doing some work on myself and realize that I want to shift some things in my life. And I say, by the time you hit 30 years old, in today's time, you could begin to really look at how you want to shift and need to shift and connect to your life. Even younger, if you can get there. It happens. You can be 23, 24, 25. It was 21 when the leader of the Black Panthers was killed. Martin Luther King was killed, I think, in his 30s. You know, there's a lot of people there were a lot of powerful people. A lot of powerful people that have made a lot of changes on the planet. And they've done that when they were in their 20s and 30s. But if you so happen to be in your 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, or even 80s, consciousness and the expansion of consciousness works within the collective of consciousness. And as the collective of consciousness edifies, grows, all of a sudden, we can begin to help things shift. Let's help things shift, y'all. It's time to shift. We are shifting, and you better shift because consciousness is not an option. Expanding it, in other words, that state of awareness of who you are, being allowed, consciousness as in its edification allows for you to close your eyes and still be connected because you're operating off of the more than the five senses that we have been given. You begin to build up that intuition and that spiritual sense that goes beyond a book. You can go beyond a Bible. That's just history. That is ancient texts that can provide you with possibly some insight along with other things. Miss Holly says the Gospels talk about knowing, not believing. And also because Mary Magdalene is a female and she was the closest to Jesus, and we can't have that. And because it says the kingdom of God is within you, not in the church. That is some of the passages of the ancient church or the ancient scriptures that I admire because we get to properly in our own life use this information and connect to this information on how does it work for you? What do you believe? Why do you believe it? How do those beliefs add to or subtract to the quality of your life? Get you some books, read them, watch you some videos, get to know yourself, understand that life is a trial and life is trial and error. You know, I had something that just hit me, and that you know that end times, you know, Jesus is coming back. Who knows about that? The end times theory, or what we say, is eschatology, dispensationalism. End times. End times was concocted. It wasn't a thing that was talked about. I'm gonna get that name just because I think you need to have the I had his name. You can find a lot of, you know, Hal Lindsey used to talk to my dad was really into end times. Hal Lindsey, Ivan Baxter, there was I think his name was Josh or Joel or got to get it now that I started it. I have to, man, he was on the tip of my tongue. I know that Ivan Baxter was one person, but there was a way before that. You know, Perry Stone talks about all these new people that talk about it, but it was started, I would say recently, you know, maybe 100 years ago. Wasn't that long ago. And now we see it today, and people are all into eschatology. And I think a lot of times they get into that is because of the fact that it's so much easier for someone to come and rescue you from all your shit. Please come. I needed to come. And a lot of it, they want to do that just to show you up. See, I told you. When people get mad at you, they be like, well, you're going to have to just deal with it. Well, just wait. It's like they want to get you. They want to get you. And the way they want to get you is they want Jesus to fix it. So that means that I don't have to do anything to fix life. I don't have to do anything to those kids that are starving, those kids that are dying. I don't have to do anything because Jesus will fix it. And if Jesus don't fix it, then it wasn't never meant. I'm done with most of that stuff. I'm just here to talk to you about it at times so that we can have clarity and understanding so that we can actually know what to do to move forward. And I'll tell you right now, one of the main things you want to do moving forward is to know who you are, love yourself. Know who you are by loving yourself by setting boundaries and being okay with asking questions. Miss Deidre, what you think?
Oh, well, if I get into everything, I think we'll be here another hour. So I'm going to hold that for the next episode if we need to. But I would say when you were like, do you know that Jesus is coming back? And I thought to myself, well, of course, Jesus is back. Christ consciousness, that's within, right? So if that's the case, then Jesus is already back. Christ is already back.
Never left. What?
Never left. Like already here.
Like let's tune in.
Let's keep it real. Like that's how I think of it.
I love it.
And so when I operate in like that, then it really does. It expands my world. It really does. It expands things. So if you think about Christ consciousness and the concept that Christ is within, and you can tap into that consciousness, you can evolve into that consciousness. Christ was already here. But that's a different story for a different.
Oh yeah,
a whole nother episode, right?
Ooh, she didn't sparked up Christ consciousness. You know, Christ consciousness is simply, absolutely 100%. That is considered like it's the concept of an elevated state of awareness is very similar to expanded of consciousness, but we associated that Christ consciousness with Jesus. But a lot of figures in time, even before the Christ story,
exactly,
before the Jesus story,
exactly, Christ consciousness existed before Jesus of Nazareth.
Because there are very similar stories. So that higher conscious, which is basically unity, it's the thing that really draws us together as humans to even caring about another human is even hating another human. Like, you're recognizing their existence. That's a whole nother one. If there's, if we want to ever do one, I think I can go really end on Christ consciousness, and
I could too.
That could be a beautiful thing. And
Yeah.
you
Let's
know,
do it.
yeah, my thing is, how do we implement as we tap and tune into that? How do we lean into it, you know? And how do we absorb those words?
I think the key to that, that's why deconstructing and decolonizing is so important, because you really have to get back to the essence of what Christ consciousness is. Even the story of Jesus the Christ, even if you look at the story of the Buddha, Krishna, if you look at those things and get back to the essence of what those are, that's how you tap into what the real matter is. Because a lot of this crap going on ain't got nothing to do with Jesus or the Christ.
Hey, it's a great, wonderful tool. I'll tell you that. It's an amazing tool.
Conscious party. Just a conscious party. That should be our next set. That could probably be a couple sessions really digging into Christ consciousness, because it will probably upset a lot of people to know that it's really not about Jesus.
No.
Jesus had to become the Christ.
Like that
Jesus wasn't the
last
Christ.
name.
Jesus wasn't Christ. Jesus had to become the Christ. That's a different story for a different day. But anyway, I'll be here all night talking about
Oh, yeah, because we can get into what some of the scholars talk about with Jesus in existence, of who he actually is, or if he was.
Yeah. So I just want to give a shout out, Chris. It's so good to see you. It's so good to see you, Chris.
Man, you had me a little worried, to be honest. Like, I don't know why, but I was just like,
Where's Chris?
man, like, I know he was busy.
I know. We're glad to have you.
But
if you're already gone, catch the replay so we can.
Yeah, you start really connecting to some of your followers and people, and you know, you start feeling them and be like, oh, where they at least saying their name.
Yes.
Appreciate
And Seth had a great point. If you give the person the ability to think, then it kills the empire they ascribe to, because now you've actually taught them how to fish instead of doing it for them. And I think that's a really important thing, because religion likes to spoon feed. And they have hierarchy in religion in a way to kind of keep things from you so that you stay dependent. And so I think that's an excellent point. And thank you for joining us again, Seth. Mother Gwen, she's been having a good time tonight, but heavy emphasis on lived experiences matter. Absolutely. Lived experience matters. I could tell you 1,000,001 things. I can give you 1,000,001 facts. I can even share my experiences. But when you live the experience, that's where transformation comes. Then I had to give a shout out to Celeste. She's been in and out. Hey, Sib. Good to see you. And then let's see what else. There were a couple people. I saw Carl earlier. I think I spoke to him in the comments. Just want to say hi. Thank you again for everybody that came tonight. This weekend, Coach, Saturday or Sunday? Which day am I?
Sunday is when we usually do those spiritual warrior.
Yeah. This Sunday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern, 9:30 Central. I'll be leading the discussion on spiritual warrior. We're going to be in chapter 7 again, chapter 8. If you want to join us, it's exclusive to our Patreon community. If you want to just have a preview and kind of see what it's all about, you can inbox myself, Deidre Smith on Facebook, or Life Coach Malachi, Instagram or Facebook, and we will get you a complimentary subscription so that you can come and join us on Sunday. But we are in the book Spiritual Warrior by John Roger.
Really having a good time, and I think people are really, really having transformation. I'm having plenty of transformation myself.
Yeah. I'm listening to the audiobook at night, like in space of like switching it, because I normally do meditation. So I've been switching it and doing that. I love it.
Real quick, it was John. This is for y'all for history's sake. John Nelson Darby. If you ever want to learn about how end times started, it's John. It was this guy. It was back in the day. Look at him. It was John Nelson Darby.
He just looks sad. Poke that.
John Nelson Darby. He done that in 1840.
He was
so
looking for his
1800
hope.
to 1882 was his life. But literally in his latter years, that's when literally he started dispensationalism. Like there was no major talk on end times. He's the one. And there was a reason why there was a reason why this taking place, right? And they used it just like they use everything else. Yep. See, the father of dispensationalism and eschatology. Like, so when you think about it, made popular by the Schofield's Bible. Remember that? Oh, yeah, I got the
the Schofield Bible was like, if you had the Schofield Bible, you was deep.
You were deep. Like, I got the Schofields, and we didn't realize how much white supremacy essentially was tied into that. Deeply tied into it, right? It was deeply tied into getting you to believe something.
Yep. And I think he made his North American tour like in 1862 today. Okay. So it's like very interesting because it's like ties right into the Civil War, ties right into do we get rid of slavery or not? And it's just a very interesting when you go back and really dig into the history of how he spread that message over here to North America. It tracks with white supremacy.
Wow. They say some of this has been present in various forms throughout history, and talking about Zionism basically and in Jewish traditions. I don't know how it relates because they don't believe in it. Early Christian eschatology. Wow.
Probably because they were always looking for the Messiah to come. It's the same thing. And I do believe in the early church and throughout, they were always looking for Jesus to come back. But the spin that the rapture theology took on it, has had the world in a chokehold.
I think all of it, when it comes to a lot of this theology, that we're just like, wow. Only if we can have some kind of level of relationship with the divine within ourselves. And if you need it outside yourself, that's fine. I'm going to end this stream at 222. We're going to end it at all 2. So we're about to go off there now. I'm joking. Anyways, it was just cool. It was coming too fast. But anyways, I love y'all. Deidre was like, what? Oh, I still got to mess with you. I love y'all. And I will be putting Beyond Belief. I still stuff that I want to do with Beyond Belief with y'all. I still got something I'm working on. But by my birthday, August 31st, I will have it posted, and you can get it on Apple and social media and all that. And I might do something, I don't know, special. August 31st is my birthday. I'll be 49. So, and cool. I appreciate y'all.
We'll figure out something.
We'll figure out something. Just, But anyways, I love y'all, and we will see y'all next week. Bye-bye.
Good night.
echoes of sermons and signs. Told who I was, what to believe, how to walk the line. Kneeled at the altar, searching for grace. But all I found was fear wrapped up in faith. But something deep inside kept calling me. A whisper in the dark said you are free. Not in the rules, not in the chains, but in the love that calls my name. Learning to love myself, trust myself, even when I think I'm wrong. Learning to be set free, learning to be, learning just to be. No longer bound by the weight of my past. Took off the guilt, let it burn in the ash. I don't need permission to stand in the light. God ain't a place, God is inside. God is inside. Something deep inside keeps calling me. A whisper in the dark says you are free. Not in the rules, not in the chains, but in the love that knows my name. Learning to love myself, trust myself, even when I think I'm wrong. Learning to be set free, learning to be, learning just to be. Deep inside keeps calling me. A whisper in the dark says you are free. Not in the rules, not in the chains, but in the love that knows my name. Learning to love myself, trust myself, even when I think I'm wrong. Learning to be set free, learning to be, learning to love myself, trust myself, even when I think I'm wrong. Learning to be set free, learning to be, learning just to be.